all debts, all interest payments on all debts were forgiven. We went to zero interest rates everywhere. That reset the global economy. It's exactly the same time as Bitcoin came out. So they're all birthed. Zero interest rates and Bitcoin are birthed at the same time. And the macro cycle is this debt refi cycle every 3.5 years to 4 years that happens, that exactly corresponds to the crypto cycle. I think it's coincidental.
Hey guys, welcome back to Everyday Finance. In this video, Raoul Pal discuss about Bitcoin and crypto. Raoul Pal says, I believe that the halving and the macro cycle are coincidental. It so happens that 9 miraculous events took place in 2008. All debts were discharged, including all interest payments on all loans. All interest rates were set to zero. That reset the world economy precisely 6 minutes after the release of Bitcoin. Zero interest rates are born at, and Bitcoin is born at simultaneously. This debt refi cycle is the macro cycle that occurs every 3.5 to 4 years. That is precisely in line with the crypto cycle. I believe it to be coincidental. Thus, I believe that macro is truly the determining element and the halving, and lots of things Raoul Pal discuss, so please watch the video to end and share, subscribe our channel. Everyday Finance, thanks.
Hey, look, I've been around this since 2012. I've seen these, and it's usually the same mistake happens most times over, is people build businesses based on leverage on an 80% volatility asset, and then when the asset starts going down, everybody blows up. Yes, it's quiet right now in crypto, but the ongoing adoption, let's say, the number of active addresses keeps rising over time. Even last year, in a down 75% market, the number of active addresses rose 42%, which is remarkable. So for me, everything's on track. So last year, in 2022, we started to see all the forward-looking macro indicators, stuff like liquidity, stuff like the ISM survey, all of this stuff was falling sharply. It was all signaling that we were going to go into recession. All assets fell in 2022. I mean, everything. Crypto, equities, bonds, the lot, because it was pricing in a recession because of the inflation, the interest rate rises, all of those things. So for me, it all got priced in last year. Then this year, we've seen what I refer to as crypto spring, but we've also seen macro spring, which is the forward-looking indicators are now at the bottom and starting to rise quite sharply. So it suggests that we're transitioning through into better times. So where the economy is right now is probably at its slowest point. So a lot of people is like, well, where's my recession? It's most likely to happen in this quarter and maybe Q1. But we're already seeing the light at the end of the tunnel on the other side, which is why assets have been strong. And everyone's like, what? Why is the NASDAQ up 40%? And why is Bitcoin up 60%? It's because they're already pricing it. So I'm incredibly positive. So why is that? Well, if you think about what happens at this point in the cycle, when we're going into that recession phase, we're really in the slowdown phase. Inflation falls, unemployment usually rises, the central bank usually stops hiking, which it feels that the Fed and certainly the ECB have got to, and others. So that takes some of the pressure off markets. And then as inflation comes down, unemployment rises, or something breaks, like the banks, then we get what I refer to as more cowbell, which is more stimulus, which is the likely use of quantitative easing, cutting of interest rates. We've seen the US give some stimulus to the banks. So we're starting that stimulus cycle, early stage. And again, these are the kind of things that crypto loves. That's the golden times, and that's where we're coming. That we might see the first signs of summer. So if you think of it in a calendar, sometime by around May, the days suddenly you start to get some really nice hot days, and the weather starts to get better. I think the halving is coincidental to the macro by the end of this year. It just so happens the markets that in 2008-9 magic things people will have a bit more optimism. although
all
the economy's
debts,
going to look bad,
all interest payments on all debts were
that's
forgiven.
where you start
to zero
transitioning
interest
towards
rates
summer.
everywhere.
Probably the real
That
summer doesn't
reset
get
the global
going
economy. It's exactly
till
the same time as Bitcoin
Q2
came out.
2024.
So
that's
they're all
when things start
birthed.
to get
Zero
crazy
interest rates
again.
and Bitcoin are birthed at the same time.
And the macro cycle is this debt refi cycle every 3.5 years to 4 years that happens that exactly corresponds to the crypto cycle. I think it's coincidental. So I think macro is actually the dominant factor and the halving is a false narrative, but it doesn't matter because it still works, right? It's the same cycle. So you can measure it any way you want. So if we go, okay, well, what's going to be happening next year? So next year, the central bank will be cutting rates. Next year, there might be fiscal stimulus because there's an election. Next year, if the economy's slow, they're likely to be doing quantitative easing. So that's the full set of things that you've seen on every cycle so far. So, yeah, I think it's the same. Now, there is a risk that it's not. Of course, I understand that something changes and the central banks stay higher for longer, nothing changes, liquidity doesn't come back. But that's yet to be proved.
Look, I've learned from the past is we don't give price appreciation because you get beaten over the head by people for it. So, it's not worth it anymore. But normally prices, prices rise from these kind of levels 5x plus. It goes beyond the all-time high and maybe doubles that or triples that. That's the kind of zone that normally happens. Does that happen this time? I have no idea. I don't see why anything's changed. And I think the whole crypto market, Bitcoin usually underperforms in the bull cycle. So, whatever Bitcoin does, ETH will do more, Solana might do more than that, and something else, whatever, will do a lot more than that. So that's because there's a risk curve, same as there are in all markets. So that's what I'm thinking will happen this time around. I don't see any reason it shouldn't, but, as you said, there's not been many examples so far of this. So you've got kind of a few cycles and it's like, is it going to happen every time? Who the hell knows? So for me, it's still my core asset because there's so many applications built on top of it. And that's only growing over time. And then you've got the layer 2s and that's scaling the whole space. So, I remain very optimistic. So ETH is still my main focus and my main position. And then I have some Bitcoin, obviously. And the other bigger position I've got is Solana, which is kind of under-owned. It got killed in the down cycle, down 97%, same as ETH did back in 2018. We saw economic activity picking up on chain. If Solana continues to pick up economic activity in the way that it's doing, it will outperform ETH. Simple as that. And looking at previous cycles, those kind of things tend to do, that 10, 20, 30x. ETH did 47x from the low from 2018. Solana bottomed at, I can't remember what it was, 9, something like that. So could it do 47x? Maybe, maybe not from the low price. We'll have to wait and see. In crypto spring, the best thing to do is be prepared. What am I going to do in this cycle? How am I going to FOMO in? How am I going to position myself? What am I going to do? So I like to take notes to think about, to pre-prepare for things. Where could I be wrong? What could go on? What risks will I take? How will I stop myself doing the stupid things? Because people do stupid things. They lose their minds in a bull market if it comes. So I think there's that. The other thing is to educate yourself. Learn how to invest, understand the risks, the opportunities, and learn from the experts.